Welcome to A to Z Jobs, the podcast that delves into the fascinating world of careers, one profession at a time.
In each episode, we'll deep dive into a specific profession, exploring its history, requirements, challenges, and rewards.
So get ready to expand your horizons, challenge your perceptions, and discover a world of possibilities. I'm Roxy,
And I'm Nate.
and we're excited to host you on this journey.
In this episode, we introduce you to Lauren, who shows us you can build a life from multiple roles to achieve a balance in your life and to chase your passion. We find out how she's building a business at the same time as being a part-time executive HR and a full-time mum.
Hi, Lauren. Welcome to our podcast.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Brilliant. Let's dive straight in, like I like to say at the beginning of every episode at the moment, and find out what you do for a living.
Yes. So I wear three distinct hats, actually. I am an executive HR manager in Sydney. I am a full-time mum, and I am also a postpartum nutritionist. So I guess although the careers seem kind of incredibly diverse, I guess I'm really blessed to have two distinct careers that both drive my passion for enabling people to thrive.
Wow, that's brilliant. And a full-time mum.
Yeah,
Just to add that one on top. No, that's amazing. I can't wait to dive into all of this and ask you a million questions.
Absolutely.
How does that split work then? Talk us through what is day to day with all these different hats and all these different pies.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess as you'd imagine, my days are pretty varied. So I have two distinct days a week where I wear my HR hat, and that hat is, my partner is primary carer of our child on those days. I am in the office, I'm leading teams, and I guess kind of shaping the future of an organization through its people. And then the other 5 days, I am a bit more of a juggle. So I do, on the other 5 days, I guess I'm, live and breathe family, health, and nutrition. So when Bubba's sleeping, which I will say is not that often, I am working on my two nutrition businesses. So I've got Fuel Your Life Nutrition, and I've got the Postpartum Project, who the latter actually is co-founded with Lou Barter, who was recently on your podcast.
Yeah.
So I kind of spend my days helping mums build the confidence and skills they need to fuel themselves and fuel their families. So I guess, it's really around putting out research and information and coaching mums to give them the skills that they need to eat well. And particularly important, helping them understand why good nutrition is one of the greatest gifts that they can give their kids.
I think I really need you in my life right now. 1-year-old.
Yes.
You always come last as a mum. I don't know.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, research kind of tells us that mums, even more so than any other primary caregiver, are the greatest role model for their kids. And so if we, kind of eat well and show them how to eat well, that's going to have the greatest impact on them in the future. So yes, it is definitely a juggle between making sure that we look after ourselves and, and therefore, I suppose, look after our children in.
That's brilliant. My son is currently shoveling gnocchi into his mouth to keep him quiet during the podcast. It's got spinach and all sorts with it. But
Yeah.
How do you, Lauren, just jump in. So both Rox and I have worked in the HR field, and it's one of those jobs that can, if you let it, becomes very consuming. How are you managing to go, no, that's my 2 days, and then I've got my energy over here? How are you doing that distinction?
It is challenging, actually. And I would say that I don't get it right all of the time. I think I will say I'm very fortunate to have a great degree of flexibility across both of my careers. So I am able to blend them a little bit, but I will say that on the days where I'm kind of blending HR and nutrition and motherhood, they are they are the days that remind me to keep my boundaries. And I think, in work, a lot of us struggle to keep our personal boundaries. And I do try and make that a priority, because unless that's a priority, then I don't do anything well.
It's such a hard line, and you've got to try and set those rules really strict. And
Yeah.
if you miss on one, it's a balancing game constantly,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know how you do it.
Discipline. I will say it more than anything at all, it's discipline to know when to hold strong to your personal boundaries. And I think now that Bub is here, it's even more so important, to do, to keep those boundaries so that I can be a good and a present mum, a good and a present HR manager, and a good and a present, nutritionist. Because all of my stakeholders deserve that. And I do too.
Yeah, definitely. And it probably you're 100% in all of those things. Even your
Yeah.
80% is probably better than 100% in most cases. So how did you get started in each profession? Well, obviously
Yeah.
it's a mum, but
So this is a little bit of a long and windy tale, I guess. So if I kind of think all the way back, I started in recruitment. And I started in recruitment because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And so I was not, instead of kind of racing off to do any degree, I raced off to the workforce. Straight from school rather than going to university. So what that led to was a career in recruitment, which over time was really fantastic, because it meant that when I went back to university to retrain as a HR specialist, I was very sure of what I wanted to do.
yeah.
And so then it was through my work in organizational psychology that I found this really deep fascination for the human mind. And so at 34, when I came home and announced to my parents, or I was not living at home, I announced to my parents, hey, I want to give up full-time work in a perfectly good job and, really, really good HR job, really reputable company. I want to go back to university and do a degree in medical science and neuroscience, and I want to become a doctor. And they went, what?
Wow.
What? So I had every intention to become a doctor. So I went back to uni. I studied medical science and neuroscience. But what I realized along the way is that medicine is all about treating disease rather than preventing it. And I felt that, my world or my passion was more around disease prevention rather than just the treatment of disease when people are already ill, which kind of meant that I said, all right, what is there for me in this space where I'm working with people in health and disease prevention? And then that led me to nutrition.
Wow.
And, so then alongside my medical science studies, I then retrained as a postpartum nutritionist. And I think postpartum specifically because I think that, that disease prevention kind of starts in childhood, and as parents and particularly as mums, like I was talking about before, we are the greatest role models for our children. So if we can learn to eat well and we can learn to fuel our families well, then they will only thrive as a result.
Oh, that's
So
such
here
a
I am.
brilliant way. Yeah. It's
What?
such a brilliant way of thinking, because you're going to the source, not the end,
Yeah.
and helping people from there onwards, even with the
Mm.
beginning of babies.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I just wanted to look back. You mentioned so you were 34 and you're like, this. I know this is what I need to do. You had
Yeah.
that conversation with friends and family, and you
Yeah.
took the dive. At what point was there any key moments, or was there any? I love this stuff. Like, how do you know
Yeah.
that within yourself that you're confident enough to do this, and this is the right time, and this is what I need to be doing?
I was none of the above. I was not confident.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was what I needed to be doing. To be honest, I had sat on it for about 5 or 6 years.
Mm.
And I thought, I had this deep fascination for the human mind and for neuroscience, and then, which kind of led to medical science. But I'd sat on this notion for about 5 or 6 years, and in the end, what I thought was, if I don't do it, it's kind of it got to a now or never. And I thought, if I don't take the leap, then a career, then I will look back on a very reasonable career in HR. At the end of my career, I will look back on, a really reasonable career, but it was not necessarily one that was going to really fuel and drive or align with my core values, I guess.
Yeah.
And so I kind of I leapt into the abyss rather than feeling at all confident about it. Yeah, because I think at 34, there's this notion of, well, you should kind of be set up by now. You should be on your career trajectory. And I was on that career trajectory, and, just decided, nope, I'm going to turn it all on its head. And here we are. And I will say that it's all paid off, and I'm incredibly, incredibly happy with, the result, or where I'm at the moment.
That's brilliant. That's really inspiring. I turned 31 on Monday, and I keep thinking there are all these things I need to do. There's all these projects. They're all on my wall. And I've been talking about them for 8 years now.
Yep.
I know, it's brilliant.
Thank you.
And the other sort of aspect of it is like, one of our questions is there an easier path? I mean, well, yes, you could have gone straight out of high school to study medicine, but there's always that journey you have to be on to get to the point where you're ready to do it. Like, so many people leave school, jump into university, study the wrong thing, build the wrong career, then have to start again. So I suppose to you, I mean, if you could give advice to yourself, is there an easier way that you could have started it, or is there something you wish you had known earlier?
I think the thing that do you know what? I guess I think that I will say that, yes, as you said, there was an easier path. There would have been a more straightforward path. But I will say that where I was at each life stage, I wouldn't have succeeded until now, on that path until now. I wasn't ready for it. I don't think that, in terms of my education, I didn't really thrive in education until my mid-30s. I was not somebody who was particularly academically minded at school. So I never would have been successful in university, and particularly within medicine, and neuroscience, I would not have been successful earlier. So for me, this was the best path. But I think to really answer, the question about the advice, I think there's probably two things. And the first thing is that you are more capable than what you currently know. So I think if I take myself back to where I first started, I think, you are nowhere near your full potential. And so you don't know everything, but you can learn anything at all that you put your mind to, with the right commitment and the right resolve. So never, ever be afraid to try something new.
It's amazing.
And I think the second thing is that, big ideas are really good, but they're really just ideas. And I think, because I've got quite an entrepreneurial mindset. So I've got all of these great ideas all of the time, a little like all of your projects on the wall, but I think it's really, the dedication and commitment that you have to doing the small, kind of boring and really important things every day, that's going to see you change the world and be successful, not the big idea. So they're probably the two things that I would think of when I think about advice.
I highly agree with you there with my 5 or 6 failed ones.
Yeah.
You just have to have that commitment.
Yeah.
It's, as I say, well, commitment and accountability. I think
yes.
Roxy and I are very similar people, where we get the big ideas and we start spinning. We go in all directions, but we managed to find a happy medium, and we keep each other accountable and on track. So I think a lot of the time it's harnessing the idea and making sure you've got the support network around you to make it happen.
Totally.
Yeah. A very good theme that comes out of every single one of our podcasts is the core values puzzle, where it's these things that you have to do to get to a certain point in your life where it's like a eureka point where you can see the full picture and what it means to you, because when you're 18 or 21 or even 27, you're still working it all out, and we've talked to people who in their 40s now are actually going, you know what, this isn't my final career.
Yeah.
What's your final career? What are you working out from there? And he's probably going to have 5 or 6 careers before that.
And I just love that about kind of the way that business has evolved, to be honest, to give us permission to not just have one passion, or not just one career, or God forbid, if the career that you chose, as your university degree at 18 or 17 is what you're committed to for the next 50 years. I mean, I love that we are now in a world where we're able to consider different options at any life stage.
Yeah, and learn different options in so many
Mm.
different avenues. There's so much available to you that I think if I went back, I'd be completely overwhelmed now. But yeah,
No, it is overwhelming. It's worth it.
but it is. Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah.
So, what are the favorite things about your 3 jobs?
Yes. So I think for me, it's how much I get to learn. And, I'm kind of, I guess, and I particularly think about this in the context of my postpartum nutrition business, is I am completely obsessed with bringing knowledge to mums. And I think that world, I was really thinking about this question. I thought, you know what, that world is probably where I want to answer this question, because the world of postpartum nutrition is relatively untapped. There isn't a lot of research. And I think that mums are still relatively unaware of the great impact that their eating habits have on their kids. And so, that body of research is growing quickly. And I kind of love that I'm able to be at the forefront of that. And I can share this new information, knowledge and insights with mums. And, I guess it brings me a lot of joy that my work can help new mums feel just a little bit more confident in their new
Yeah.
role and the choices that they're making for them and their families. And then I think across all of them, there is this theme of just wanting to help and support people to reach their full potential and to enable, kind of them. And then I guess if in the ripple effect, them and their families to thrive. And that's both through, creating kind of engaging and positive company cultures within HR, and then also working directly with, mums on creating intergenerational health.
Oh, that's brilliant. It's so, well, both things are very, very important. The culture of an organization, it can change in a heartbeat in some situations. So the HR department is so important for that, and the structure around that. And then as a first-time mum myself, the food aspect of it, the hormone aspect of it, the new body that I'm in, and it's changed. It's weird. Like it's something I struggle with on a daily basis.
Likewise.
And I'll put my hand up. I went to the doctor last week and he said, look, you're just not looking after yourself enough. And that's what the issue is. You know, you're not focusing on you. You need to be focusing on not just Rory, the baby, you.
Yes.
So they're all so important. And it's amazing that that's what you're passionate about. And that's your favorite thing. And that's what you move forward with. It's helping people.
Yes. Yeah. Fundamentally, that is, and yeah, that is exactly what it is.
Yeah.
And how are you doing? So you mentioned the communication and like that knowledge sharing. How are you doing that? How are you engaging with them? Is it sort of online platforms or it's more face to face?
So it's both. I would say that the platform is most definitely more online these days, I think, and certainly it's the way that I think people like to engage. It's relatively few face-to-face engagements these days, and I think with the right kind of, I mean, social media is such a marvelous tool to be able to reach the masses and kind of share that information, I think. So between that and my kind of growing network of mums, through bringing like-minded mums together through Facebook communities and so forth, that's generally where I see the most reach.
Knowing people like Lou who run her Mum redefined
Exactly right.
fitness courses and networking.
Yeah.
It's a really key theme as well through our podcast, and building
Yes.
those networks, getting to know people, reaching out, putting yourself out there, and finding your
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Exactly right. I talk a lot, and Lou and I talk a lot about, kind of finding your tribe and finding, bringing together like-minded mums and, who have got similar interests, similar common goals. And there is a lot of work, and you do need to put yourself out there quite a lot to do that. But I think when you tap into those people, then it's incredibly rewarding.
It's brilliant.
So we've touched on all the positives. What about the negatives? What do we have happening in the world that is a bit of a struggle?
And I do know what we're almost talking about it now is that the marketing and the putting yourself out there. I think that I know with what I do and particularly, within the nutrition space, what I want to do in terms of bringing that knowledge to mums on that intergenerational health. I need to put myself out there. I need to do the marketing. But I tell you, if I had a choice, I would spend my time, researching, creating that really valuable content for mums. And full disclosure, I am less passionate about what I need to do to kind of connect that content with the right audience, because it's really hard. It's
Yep.
really hard. I know if you have a look if you have a look, for example, my Instagram page, it is aesthetically terrible. And fortunately, I know people like Lou, you were talking about networking, who is our postpartum project Instagram page, which is our collaboration, is much more aesthetically pleasing because she's helping to coach me. So I'm learning, but things like that, honestly, I had no idea about, but they are really important parts of the job as well.
There are
Yeah.
a lot of rabbit holes you can go
Mm.
down.
Yeah,
The
Funnel.
honestly, I was looking at a
to
web page on sales funnels the other day, only because I had lunch with my brother and he said, "Oh, do you know what about, what are your funnels?" I'm like, "What are you talking about? Funnels?" And then all of a sudden I was on this, YouTube talking about sales funnels, going, "Oh my God."
Yeah.
I think I need to go back to university just to learn about online marketing.
then you go down the path of looking at, oh, how can I automate things with AI?
Yes.
Life had a week of time. You just
Just watch a bunch of videos. You could have been making content.
They're really like they're probably fantastic tools when you know how to utilize them properly, but then us mere mortals have to spend all of our time figuring out how to use them.
Watching
yeah.
about 10 YouTube tutorials to see how it actually applies to you and where it fits. And
Yeah. Yeah, and it it is a maze. It is
Yes.
it's very complex.
Yeah, it's a huge. It's something I freaked Nathan out to begin with because I think I spent the last 5 years listening to podcasts from
Yeah.
Pat Flynn to Marie Forleo to Amy Porterfield and all of these, how to get an email list and what a funnel is and all this stuff
Yes.
and lead magnets, and you could just keep going and going and going.
Mm.
I will say though, Pat Flynn's my favorite.
Okay.
He's amazing. He does a build your own brand course. It's completely free.
Oh,
It shows
wow.
you how to do everything from building a website to creating a mailing list.
I feel like
yeah.
I definitely need Pat Flynn in my life then.
He's pretty good. He gets you started, gets you excited, talks a lot about Back to the Future.
Fantastic. I have to check it out.
Yeah. But you got to find your guru in that sense and just maybe
Yes.
stick to one and just not get
Yes.
stuck. But it is one of the worst things because it's time consuming. You're learning a lot. There's a lot of tools. There's a lot of tools that do the same thing.
Yeah.
And it can be expensive as well.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So if you could give any advice to anybody wanting to start off maybe in the nutrition field, because it sounds like that's the one that you're the most passionate about,
Yeah.
what would you give them?
So I guess what I said before, about big idea, those kind of big ideas being really good, because I think if somebody's starting out in nutrition and dietetics, unless you want to work in clinical dietetics, which is in the hospital space, then you're generally going to be working, with the general population. And so I think the important thing is, there's a lot of technical knowledge in nutrition and dietetics. When you kind of lift the lid on it, it can be very complicated. So I think a couple of key things is that the first thing is get your big ideas and distill them into something that the general population can understand, and distill them into something that the general population that is a genuine need for the general population, rather than just perhaps an interesting topic for you as a nutrition and dietetics professional. But the second thing I think that is really important is around that dedication and commitment to doing the small things day in, day out. We talked about, if you want to reach people, you've got insights and information that perhaps doesn't currently exist within that general population. It's not so easy as to just say, great, I've got this really interesting information, everybody come and listen to me now. Otherwise we would all be really successful social media influencers. But it really is about doing those small things, and perhaps the things that you don't particularly enjoy every day, kind of in favor of enabling your successful, the outcome that you're looking for.
Yeah, definitely. So also thinking about your HR side, what industry are you in HR? Because that's something that's really interesting. It can be anything. Yeah.
And so I'm in the finance industry.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that it's a really interesting kind of turn of events, that when I decided to change my careers, that I found the HR job that I was looking for all along.
Oh.
It was such an interesting, it was such a stroke of luck. So although I've had the opportunity to move away from HR and invest my time full-time into nutrition, I've elected to retain both, because I find the role that I have in the company that I work for so incredibly fulfilling that I wouldn't want to move away from it. So it's such an interesting turn of events that when I stopped looking for the perfect job, there it was.
The universe said go.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
A very, very similar thing happened to me. I went from artist management to recruitment, and it was all because I kind of got kicked out of my apartment in Sydney. The rent went up, and my job wanted me to stay in the studio, and I couldn't. So I looked for a remote role, and now I have a brilliant and more flexible role that, it just worked.
Yeah. And it is sometimes all about timing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's good.
Timing and also mindset, being open. Like these opportunities may have been popping up before, but you weren't getting kicked out of your apartment, so you didn't notice these opportunities before. So it's being open and ready for these moments to pop up as well, I think.
Yeah, you're kind of standing on the ledge ready to go, whereas before it's like, oh, but if I do that, there's a lot more work starting a new job.
Sometimes that's good, actually. Yeah, you're right. Time for that.
Yeah.
And then the education, this is quite a big question for you, because there's the different hats and there's different pathways. So I'll leave it open to you. What education you want to talk about? Any advice you'd give in terms of education?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, for me, and everyone will have a different perspective on, do I go to university straight from school? Do I go to TAFE and get a vocation? Do I do an apprenticeship? There are so many different options. And, like we touched on before, I have not had a straightforward, career path, and certainly not a straightforward education path. But for me, it was the one that worked. I don't see, a more straightforward education pathway being successful for me. So if I guess I started off with TAFE in a certificate let me start that one again. I did a certificate in business administration straight from school at TAFE, which was honestly a phenomenal start. And I think there's this massive focus on going to university, but having a TAFE qualification under my belt meant that I had something to then take into the workforce and really then understand or be able to explore the workforce and get an understanding of work life without feeling the need to go on and do tertiary education straight away. So I was 25 when I went back and did a Master of Commerce, majoring in HR and industrial relations. And so the work experience actually really worked in my favor because I went straight into the master's program with 5 years of work experience, 5 years of relevant work experience being a substitute for the bachelor degree.
Wow.
So I was actually, I did a 2.5-year part-time degree whilst working full-time and came out of it at 27 with a master's degree, which was a fantastic outcome. And then again at 34, I went back and did the Bachelor of Medical Science, and alongside that did my nutrition and postpartum nutrition certifications. And so I think for me, the thing that the key takeaways is that none of my education was check the box. There was always a purpose for it. And it was always a purpose that was very clear to me. It wasn't my parents think that I should go to university, or, my family is in medicine and therefore I should be in medicine. I was very clear on why I was going to university and what the outcome that I was looking for was. And I think because I was very clear on that, and because I was very interested in the subject matter, that led to a profound love of learning that I never, ever would have known existed otherwise. And I think that, that love of learning meant that I was intrinsically motivated to do really well at university. And I know that can be a struggle for people. And it was that love of learning and then the outcome being really, quite a great deal of success at university because of that intrinsic motivation that has led to a development of confidence in academia and my own ability that has served me well beyond the piece of paper that I got as a result of studying.
That's amazing.
Purpose. It comes down to purpose. I love that.
Yeah,
it really does.
For
Rather
me,
than
it does.
ticking all the boxes, you're doing what matters at the right time, and then appreciating it more, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Can I ask though, why you, after starting in HR and having that experience, why did you go and do the masters?
Because I didn't, at that point, it became important to have a university education to further my career. So I was working in recruitment at that time, and I knew that I wanted to move into generalist HR and in particular into HR leadership. And to do that, I needed that tertiary qualification.
Yeah, definitely. I've been in that stage in my life. That's why I asked. I did a diploma at RE just to sort of top it up a little bit, but I've always been on that fence of, do I do a degree to be able to, have more options in my career versus recruitment and HR and artist management's a whole different thing in the film industry we can talk about for ages. But but no, it's really interesting. It's a top up. It's a help for you to kind of get a different career, and also move your career forward as well. Whereas a lot of careers get to a dead end in some cases, and people won't make that next step.
Yes,
that's awesome.
But I think it's also important just to reinforce the purpose there, because you had the drive and you had the purpose for doing it, not just tick the box. Like, I don't want you signing up for a university degree, and if you're hiring, don't do it. You need to make sure it's your purpose, all right?
Yeah.
I'm not anymore. But me 3 years ago was like, I've got to do this. And I called up unis to be like, does, my CV match? Can I go straight into a master's? But because I work in the film industry, the HR role was not quite Nathan's HR role, because we had split responsibilities essentially. So for me it was like, no, you can't actually you have to start from the BA and go into the masters, even though word for word the job description is certain. But don't worry, Nathan, I'm not off now. actually really enjoy recruitment. I've gone back into that, and I love talking to people. So it's it's good.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, as you were talking about, check the box and different skill, you're transferring different skill sets. I think the other thing that I've just thought of, which I think was really interesting to me at the time, was when I decided to go back and do the Bachelor of Medical Science. I was not mathematical or scientific at all at school. I did not even do them as electives in my senior schooling. And so when I rang the universities and said, "Oh, look, I kind of want to do this, but I have absolutely no skills in this area, and I know that science and maths and biology, physics are all really important, and I've never done them, but any chance." I'm a mature age student, so I'll work really hard. I know this is where I want to be. And they said, send through your school transcripts. Now, this is bearing in mind 16 years after I finished school. They said, send through your school transcripts. And I did music and drama, and I did quite well in music. And they rang me and they said, yes, we will definitely send your application in. And I had to be a little bit strategic about when I had to do a mid-year application, because otherwise the end of year I'd be competing with all of the school leavers that have the really high HSC results. But what they said was that because there are patterns in music that you need to be able to recognize. And if you do well in music, then you are more likely, there's a probability that you're going to have an affinity for mathematics, because you have to have spot patterns as well. And you have to be able to read different patterns that are not, English letters and numbers. And so I guess I say that because I would hate anybody to think that there are limitations based on, just because I haven't done this doesn't mean that you're not capable of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably a really good example of, of transferable skills that I don't think people would ever, kind of link together unless somebody told them about them.
Oh, I had no clue about that.
No.
And it's also, I think, also the the being proactive. Like,
Yeah.
you've got your purpose, so you know what you need to be doing. You found the hurdle, but you've reached out, you've asked for help, you've got advice. So it's not just looking at like a job description and going, nah, I don't tick that one box, not going to do it, move on. Like, there's ways around things. You just need to talk to people.
Yes.
It's the one thing I think I've helped any of my friends with, because I'm the kind of person that if I do set my mind on something, I always have to ask why it didn't work out. So, a job application, even as a recruiter, I encourage the candidate to sort of get some feedback out of me, even from the beginning. My husband applying for a job a couple of months ago, I almost forced him to pick up the phone to be like, well, what was it? Because he's a fully qualified mechanic, everything fit. Like, this is a lower level job, it's a different career. And it just turned out that they thought he would just want more money, so it's just so you don't know why someone might have rejected that application, but to actually pick up the phone and ask, not many people do it anymore. It's this thinking out of the box situation of how you apply for a job, or how you get involved with a job, or who you talk to, or seeing an advert in the newspaper. A friend of mine found one in a local newspaper the other day. And she messaged the lady, it's about location scouting, and she missed the workshop altogether. And I said to her, just email the lady. And she went, no, I can't do that. And I said, well, here's her number, because I found it on my recruitment. There's a little software I've got that looks up people's emails and phone numbers. So she gave her a call and she's got the job. But it's just that out of the box, she just go and do something new, The timing didn't line up. She couldn't go to the workshop. She's a mature student compared to what the location scout was looking for. And that's that.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I am curious, so how long was your science degree?
It took me 4 years.
Okay. And is that part-time or?
No, that was full-time.
Full-time. Awesome.
Yeah.
Are you doing that as well as working at the time, or?
Yeah, so I'm full disclosure, a little bit of an overachiever. So I somehow, and it's one of those things, you kind of do it in the moment, and then in hindsight you think, how did I do that.
Yep.
But yes, but I was working part-time, and then studying full-time, and then in the holidays I was doing my postpartum nutrition, or my nutrition and then postpartum nutrition certifications.
Wow. That's brilliant. And it's
Mm.
amazing that you also found your niche in that
Yes.
sense of science, and I love that it's at the beginning of everything. It's almost like the beginning of life.
Yes. Yeah. I hadn't thought of it that way. That's great.
It's awesome. It's your new slogan for your sales funnel. Let's start right at the beginning of life. Which gets
Fantastic.
me into the next question pretty well, actually. What is an inspirational quote that's inspired you and kept you going?
There are two, and one I think is one that probably people have heard before, and one maybe not. So I think the one that perhaps people may not be so familiar with, but from a very incredibly famous inspirational man by Nelson Mandela, is education is the most powerful weapon with which you can change the world. I love that one. And then the second one, which is dear to my heart because I'm saying yes to everything and just kind of figuring it out all, as I go, is a Richard Branson quote, which is, if somebody offers you an amazing opportunity, but you're not sure you can do it, say yes and learn how to do it later.
It's amazing. They're both
That is a good one.
people I love. The Nelson Mandela quotes is on my wall because I'm South African, so it's yeah, it's one of the quotes that are there, like staring at me.
Amazing.
Yeah. No, it is brilliant. I think there's not enough people that actually do say yes to something and just make it, wing it, go for it. Freak out at your husband, freak out at your friends. That's what they're there for.
Totally. Yeah. I know, and that one resonates. My first HR job, I was hired as an internal recruiter. And whilst I was in South America during my period of, kind of between jobs, and the HR manager resigned during that time. And I thought, oh, that's fine. I'll just recruit a new HR manager. And I walked in on day one. They said, could you write this job description? And on day two, they said, do you want the job? And I went, sure, let's figure it out. Yeah. And so since that day, that was about 15 years ago, that Richard Branson quote really resonates with me.
It's brilliant. That's amazing. Yeah. But that's the thing. I think most people actually, you go to uni, but you'll never learn exactly what you're doing in your job. It's only now that, like, the only example I can probably come up with is in the visual effects industry. An artist goes and does a master's, and they recreate a studio, but even the studios are very different, and even the artist cultures are very different, and the type of work they're working on. So no matter what, every job you go into, you've got a 6 to 12 week period where you're learning how the whole new job works. In an HR environment, you're learning how the whole new industry works. Any degree could help you a little bit towards it, but having the gumption to keep going and keep saying yes and keep moving forward is amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. You're completely right.
That's brilliant. And last question, and Nathan might have another one after this one, is just for the mums out there listening, like me, and how I would get involved with getting to know you, and let's help plug you and put you on Instagram.
Thank you.
How do we get in touch with you as a nutritionist, and how does that work?
Yes, absolutely. So I think you can get in touch with me so my website is fuelyourlifenutrition.com. And then also on Instagram, I am _postpartum_nutritionist. And I think finally my collaboration with Lou Barter, who is our, mum safe personal trainer, is the.postpartum project.
Brilliant. That's brilliant. Did you get to know her through the same course that she did, or like how did you meet Lou?
No. So her and I know each other through a mutual friend. And we decided, I said to our mutual friend, oh, I think I really want to, specialize. I know I'm a nutritionist, but I really want to specialize in postpartum nutrition. And she went, oh, Lou, she's a specialist postpartum trainer. And so I was just about to have my baby, maybe I was 34, 35 weeks pregnant. And Lou reached out to me and said, hey, I know it's not the right time right this moment, but, when you've had the baby and you're ready, let's have a conversation. And we kind of we both wanted the same thing in to bring, to bring nutrition and, specialist nutrition knowledge and specialist fitness knowledge in the context of postpartum and new mums. We wanted to bring that to the world. There's not a lot of that exists. And so we decided to form a collaboration in the form of the Postpartum Project.
That's
So,
brilliant. Yeah. Well,
yeah,
Lou's definitely changed my life, and I think that the two of you together will probably change a lot of lives, and it sounds amazing.
I hope so. Thank you.
And another example of how networking can completely
Yes,
change your direction and your goals. Um, I don't have any more questions, but I just want to like Rox and I are building up a resources page. So over the coming days, if you think of any resources that will help anyone, send them through. We'll pop them up on the website. I'll
fantastic.
get some more education. Share the education.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Thank you. I will.
definitely. That's brilliant. Well, thank you so much for being on our podcast and giving up your time with your 3 hats and your little one.
It's my pleasure. I've really loved it. Thank you guys for having me on.
You've been listening to Roxy and Nate. Thanks for tuning in to A to Z Jobs. And always remember, it's your career and it's up to you to shape it. So dream big, make bold moves, stay curious, and keep exploring. Check out our website at thecareerchangecoaches.com for more resources, tools, and upcoming training.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode of A to Z Jobs. Remember, your dream career could be just one episode away.